Hello, I'd like to introduce you to an action figurine made by the company in China called Classic Aftertaste. They specialize in manufacturing historical action figurines, and in this case I would like to show you a sample. It is a warrior or soldier from the Ming Dynasty. I've decided to name him Jin Yang, or in proper Chinese or Mandarin grammar, it would be surname first, Yang Jin. But for our purposes here, we'll go the English way with the first name first, surname last, Jin Yang. And his first name would be spelled J-U-N, but pronounced Jin. He is a Ming Dynasty soldier. Let me show you here the back of the box. That writing says in red, "To the east, the Yangtze River surging, the heroes are all carried away by the waves." And the rest is in Mandarin. There's some English here. It just says, not suitable for somebody under 14 years old. It's more of a collector's item. So let's go and show you what he looks like. This is a very nice figure. I paid something like close to $200 US for this. Let me give you a viewing up close. The scale is 1 to 6, so meaning he's 12 inches tall, and 1 and 6 would mean that he would translate to being 6 feet tall. So anyway, he's armed with several weapons, and I'd like to set the camera down so I can pull this out and show you. Okay, how was that? Could be better, right? But let's see. I'm going to position the camera here and gently pull out the figure. Here he is. He's mostly completed. Very good face. Handsome bloke, isn't he? Okay. Ming Dynasty. So it doesn't say what time period it is, but I would say, judging by his weapons, especially his matchlock, it is sometime in the early 1600s, thereabouts. All right, because the Chinese in the Ming Dynasty did not have matchlocks until after the war with Japan, when Japan under Hideyoshi invaded the Korean peninsula. At that time, the Chinese did use firearms, but these were more like the ones in Europe in the 1400s, which was basically a metal short tube about 12 inches or so, attached to a wooden staff, loaded with powder, and there was a touch hole on the top in which a match was applied, and it fired out the lead or metal ball. So that is primarily the weapon or firearm that the Chinese Ming forces used when they intervened in the war between Japan and Korea, and came to Korea's aid with an expeditionary force. After that time, both the Koreans and the Chinese began to adopt matchlock muskets, and they created their own designs, and I'll show you that a little later on here. But first, let me show you some more of the figure. Okay, what you see here, he's got a really nice uniform. Okay. Boots. Okay, let me put him down. Let me adjust it better. Okay, over his smock, he's got some trousers, leggings, Those flasks you see are actually gunpowder flask. And that flask holds the priming powder, which is a finer powder. Okay, but the firing charges tend to be of a coarser grain. He's got forearm armor plates. Very good for defense against enemy swordsmen to protect his forearms. Okay. In the back here, he's got what is probably a water flask made out of bamboo. Alright. Okay, let me show you some more of his accessories. Let me set him down here. Okay, put him off to the side. Alright. Show you some more of him. Okay, you've got to be able to stand him up. Okay, that's good. Alright. In the box, you see right here several more of the accoutrements. What you see up there is a grenade. All right. Here is his hat. Right here. It would be made out of metal, or I presume iron, historically. There we go. Here's a better view. Okay. There is another hat. This one right here I could also use. It was supposedly a hat of distinction after some bravery or courage on the battlefield. Okay. You can see the difference here. I'm just going to use his main helmet hat. It was a combination of both being a helmet and a hat at the same time. His secondary weapon, which was really necessary for musketeer, matchlock musketeer soldiers, Europe and Asia, was a sword. And the reason was that the matchlock musket was very slow firing. Modern reproductions and reenactments confirm that the best you could get was 2 shots per minute. The matchlock was very, very slow. Here we go. It comes out. There's a nice little Asian saber right here. Give you a better view. As a result of the matchlock musket being very slow to load, 2 shots per minute, the musketeer was very vulnerable between shots, and it was necessary to have a reliable secondary weapon. And in Europe and Asia, this usually took the form of a sword. Either a short sword or a standard sword. You can see paintings, illustrations of European matchlock musketeers and Asian matchlock musketeers, especially Japanese, and they're all carrying a secondary weapon, a sword, for protection. The sword was the most handiest. They might have carried a knife or something or else, but typically it was a sword, both in Europe and in Asia. The Japanese ashikaru, which means common soldier, matchlock musketeers carried a katana or a wakizashi short sword. Here our Ming Dynasty Matchlock Musketeer is carrying a full-size, typical Northern Asian scimitar or curved sword. For some of you who are into weapons or study it, the Chinese historically preferred straight swords, but their long contact with Asian nomads, steppe nomads, made them acquainted with the curved swords. And so here's a good example of one of them. Put this back. Okay. see about showing you that grenade. Alright, I'm going to show it up there one more time. I'm going to bring out something that I can dig it out with to show you. Using the scissors and hopefully not damaging it. Okay, there you go. Yes, it looks to be, according to the instructions, some kind of explosive device. Okay. Here, a little bit closer up. In the back there's some kind of metal. I don't know what that's for. So, and maybe I'll find out later on. Now there's more to this. Behind the first layer of foam is his main weapon. First you'll see this, some illustrations. It's kind of a cartoon that shows him and what he does. It looks like he's shooting some maybe Japanese Ashigaru enemy swordsmen. Okay, look, he's actually hitting one of them right here. I would have to say that the time period of this illustration is probably off, because the Chinese did not begin manufacturing their own matchlock type weaponry until, you know, at the very earliest, probably in the later stages of the, you know, Japanese, Korean, Chinese War on the Korean Peninsula, when finally the Koreans and the Chinese realized their old handguns, the type that used in Europe also, the iron tube or brass tube, bronze tube on a staff, was hopefully outdated, and they began to adopt their own matchlock. You can see it's kind of similar to Japanese, but not exactly. And I'll show it to you here. Here first, you got some extra hands if you want to pose them gripping a sword or gripping the matchlock musket. I'll pull out the musket real soon and show it to you, but let me show you the rest of the stuff first. This piece of paper contains, I can't read it unfortunately, but it's got some stamps on it. It's probably some authentication document to tell you that you are the proud possessor of a historical action figure from this company. This is cool. What this is, it shows it's a dart. He's only carrying one of them, but it's a dart he can throw, and I don't know if it can kill anybody, but at least it will severely wound someone. So he would stash this somewhere in his belt or sash thereabouts. I promised you I would show you the musket, so let me pull it out. Okay, this is very nice, very, very nice. Let me show you from the end of the barrel. Here. Okay, you can tell it's probably an adaptation, a Ming Chinese adaptation of the Japanese matchlock musket. There's a very good similarity in the design. The Japanese style matchlock musket had a very pronounced pistol grip, okay, but it was not copied by the Koreans or the Chinese. Here you can see there's the trigger. It's all non-moving parts, so I'm not gonna bend it and possibly break it. You know, even the touch hole has a non-moving cover. A matchlock musketeer would pour his priming powder in there, right here, and then he would close the cover so that the wind wouldn't blow it out, or he wouldn't spill it. And just before he fired it, he would open the cover, and then there would be a burning match cord attached to right here, which you call the later on what's called the hammer, but it's not really a hammer. It's just the hook to hold the match cord. The Ming Dynasty Musketeer has a homemade sling attached to it. Made sense. The musket was not designed to carry an official sling of sorts, so he looks like he used a rope to make one for himself, and it works pretty well. Again, let me show it to you up close. There's a ramrod. It doesn't come out. This is good for ramming the powder charge down. Overall, this is really nice. Quality is very good. It's solid. It's not flimsy. The barrel is made out of metal. You know, it makes sense because the whole figure is centered around being a matchlock musketeer. Here. So of course his weapon should be of high quality. So if I were to take the matchlock figure, I could probably sling his right here. Okay. Let me give you a good look. Here he looks. Very formidable looking, serious man here who knows what he's doing. Carrying his matchlock musket on his back. His hands were clenched. I would have to change them out so that he could carry the matchlock. But again, let me put him back down here. Let me put his head back on. His hat so it looks better. Okay. Alright. So this would be a typical example of a well-equipped Ming Dynasty Matchlock Musketeer ready for battle. And carrying it, he would be carrying a sword at his side also. The sword is back here in the box. I purchased him on eBay, and I told you that I paid almost about $200 for him. So he was not cheap, but well, at least I can say that I'm very happy with the quality of everything. I don't feel anything to be cheap or, you know, flimsy. You know, this is not something like the box is a toy for a child to play around. This is for a collector, all right? You want to buy something like this, equip them, set them up, put them on display. I don't notice any display stand in the box anywhere, so you would either have to make one yourself or just hope he can stand up. You know, a lot of times people buy these action figures, adults, because of different reasons. Maybe someone is of Asian descent or Chinese descent and wants an Asian action figure, and somebody who wants one that's historical, like the Ming Dynasty. The Ming Dynasty was very much almost a continuation of the Song Dynasty, which is very underrated today, but is being rediscovered in Chinese history as being one of the most advanced Chinese dynasties of all. The Song Dynasty was a time of great advancement in science, literature, the arts, agriculture, sciences, astrology, maritime shipbuilding advances. Some historians claim that Song Dynasty China was on the verge of becoming an industrial nation, much like England soon became, from the later 1600s into the early 1800s. It was the weakest militarily of all the Chinese dynasties, and perhaps that's why it never got the type of credit it did in Chinese history books. But I can tell you the Chinese today are rediscovering the Song Dynasty and acknowledging that the Song Dynasty was another golden age in China. The Song Dynasty was richer than the Tang Dynasty. And so I go on about this because the Ming Dynasty, in many ways, after a 90-year interregnum of the Mongol Yuan Dynasty, continued in many ways the Song Dynasty. And the soldiers of the early Ming Dynasty closely resembled those of the later Song Dynasty. The biggest difference I would have to say here is he's carrying a matchlock weapon, which the Song Dynasty did not have. The Song Dynasty did have gunpowder, but it was used in fire arrows and pyrotechnic type weapons. Imagine a Roman candle mounted backwards on a bamboo stick spear so that he could shoot out all its pyrotechnics at an enemy soldier. That, bombs, grenades, and no one knows if the Song Chinese ever built a handgonne, the European type which I talked about, which is a metal tube on a staff. If so, we don't have any records, but definitely in the early Ming Dynasty, they did exist. And they were used in really wide numbers. And according to one account, when the Ming Dynasty soldiers first entered Korea to help expel the Japanese, one unit of Chinese handgunners did not want to give up their primitive handguns for matchlocks. And I tend to believe that probably during the war, a lot of Japanese matchlock muskets were captured and repurposed or reused by the Korean army or partisans, guerrillas, perhaps even by the Ming Dynasty soldiers, but there is no documentation about it, and probably so for maybe reasons of national pride. No one wanted to admit they were using captured Japanese weapons. But if I can tell you, I can show you that, once again, this matchlock musket shows very strong Japanese influences. Later Japanese, I should say later Chinese muskets, matchlock muskets, used a different style of pistol grip that was angled almost at a 45-degree angle and was ergonomically better. But this one works well. It looks like it could be put against the shoulder to steady the musket. Probably was. But again, like I say, in the later dynasties, the last dynasty, the Qing, the matchlock musket was commonplace, but it used a sharply angled pistol grip, which was easier to aim, but you could not put it against your shoulder. So I would have to say this does strongly resemble Japanese influence, but it doesn't have that really typical Japanese pistol grip. Very high quality. I would say I was happy to have purchased this action figure. Here's the sword, the grenade up there. It comes with everything. The box especially is of really well designed quality. It's very thick. And it's actually, I would have to recommend it as part of the collection itself. So in other words, make sure if you're going to purchase this action figure or something similar to it, because there are other action figures They're actually Song Dynasty figures and Japanese figures and Qing Dynasty figures. Keep the box in really good condition. And I recommend that the cardboard box it mailed in, hold on to that and store this nice box inside of that carrying box, because you don't want this cardboard box to be banged up. It is part of the collector's value. And if at some point in time, if you wanted to resell it, having everything, including the box it came in, and the better condition it is, the higher the value of it. So there again, thank you for listening to me and watching my video. It's the first kind of video I've did of this sort, and I hope to get better at it later on with other figures. I got one coming up that I want to talk about. It's a World War II figure of an Italian infantryman from around 1945, but that's for later. So in the meantime, have a good day, and thank you for watching my video of the Ming Dynasty Musketeer soldier, Imjin War. Have a nice day.